It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all for this NASSCOM session on emergence of new solution domains with the digital engineering in aerospace. So I'm Srinivasan Dwarakanath. I'm a strategic consultant for aerospace and aviation. Formerly, I was working for a couple of decades at Airbus. Today we have with us Savyasachi Srinivas, who is the executive director engineering at Collins Aerospace. Welcome, Savya, to the program.
Thank you, Dwarka. Thank you for having me for this program.
Hey, Savya, I know you've had a long and illustrious career in aerospace and currently leading, Collins Aerospace Engineering in India. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey. If I see that, you've done your first degree in Bangalore, right? It all started here.
Yes, I actually, wouldn't call myself Bengaluru Huduga or boy from Bangalore. Started. While I was born here, I grew up across the country, as my dad was in the Indian Armed Forces. So we, traveled every few years to a different posting. But eventually settled in, towards the high school and completed my my BE in mechanical engineering from Bangalore from BMS College. So that's where the engineering journey, I guess, started for me.
Oh, excellent. Coming back to the Collins Engineering Center in India, it'll be great to know a little bit about that. How many people do you have? What type of areas you're really working on? And do you really do some research work? You have research labs and things like that. And do you guys work only for Collins, or do you also work for others as well? So a little bit about the center itself would be great to hear from you, Savya.
Sure, Dwarka. Before I go into a little bit of college, I just want to complete my background a little bit as well. So after completing my degree in mechanical engineering, I did move to the US, and I completed my master's in industrial engineering from University of Arizona, and then I started my career in aerospace with Lockheed Martin. In Lockheed Martin, I started off as a systems engineer, doing modeling and simulation for large-scale air traffic management systems. Did that for several years, and then decided to move into management. I was managing a lot of the, I would say, non-functional sort of requirements like performance, reliability, and so on for highly complex systems. And moved on to more program sort of rules later on in my career. I had a little bit of twist in fate, which brought me back to India in 2010, and I took up the leadership of Thales in India, managing engineering in Chennai, and from there on moved to Rockwell Collins in Hyderabad, again aerospace major, which where I was the director of engineering and went out to become the head of Asia Pacific engineering for Rockwell Collins. As you all know, Rockwell was acquired by United Technologies.
Yeah.
And so that led me to relocate to Bangalore again. So I came back to Bangalore maybe 20 years after I had, 25 years after I had left Bangalore. So, life comes full circle.
That's a great journey, man.
And now we are part of the RTX group, Collins Aerospace.
Yeah.
And Raytheon Technologies and United Technologies merged, and now we are part of RTX. So that's my little bit of background.
That's great. I think it's an inspiration for a lot of the young people who are coming into aerospace as well. So they're a big circle, but I think coming back and doing a great position. You're at Collins as well. So a little bit about the Collins Engineering Center.
Yes. Then. So as far as Collins is concerned, we have about 3,000 engineers today in Collins. Variety of disciplines and technologies that people have capabilities in, and we also have a manufacturing facility in Bangalore. I'm pretty sure, Dwarka, you said you visited this facility before. So we've got a lot of capabilities. In fact, in the Collins journey in India started with the manufacturing facility. In fact, it was an MRO, which then got converted into a manufacturing facility. There we manufacture things like evacuation slides. We do interior and external lighting for aircrafts. We do cargo systems. We do actuation systems, and then we do some mission work there as well. So coming back to engineering, we support our manufacturing in Bengaluru, as well as we've got almost all the business units across the globe supported from our India engineering organization. So we've got teams that do avionics, teams that do mechanical design, actuation work. We do teams that work on aerostructures, nacelle design and development, highly complex sort of products. We've got teams that do power and controls. We've got teams that do interiors works, seating design, lighting design, including laboratory design, and which is all gaining a lot more prominence in the post-pandemic world. So all the domains covered, all sorts of disciplines and technologies covered from our Bangalore center.
Okay, all right. And what are the other locations do you have in India? So it's Bangalore, and then where are you spread?
So from an engineering perspective, it's mainly Bangalore and Hyderabad. Hyderabad is a very large. We have about 1,000 engineers based out of Hyderabad. And I would say mostly software work done out of Hyderabad. And then Bangalore is both a mix of software and hardware, mechanical, electronics.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I understand. Thanks for that. And, as you said, Collins, you've gone through a lot of evolution with several M&A, whether it is Goodrich, Utah's, Rockwell, and, would you say that today you have integrated all these different approaches to engineering? Because I'm sure in aerospace, every company comes with their own imprint on the engineering process, and they all think that is the best, right? So, and also they probably have different systems as well. Where are you guys? Is there a big drive to unify then? How are you going about it?
No, Dwarka, the best way to answer is that I would say we are in a journey. Usually these are, as you know, very large M&A activities. In fact, the Raytheon Technologies, United Technologies merger was one of the largest, mergers in aerospace and defense world. Creating a behemoth of an organization, 200,000 employees, pro forma sales of about $75-80 billion. So yes, it's very hard to standardize sort of processes overnight. I would say we have started the journey earnestly, and we are working towards it. One of the main things that we have done is we've established a process called CORE, which is bringing together the Six Sigma processes that were followed by Raytheon Technologies, as well as the ACE. The United Technologies people who have heard this term quite frequently, ACE, bringing those together and coming up with CORE, which I would say is the operating system, which would be the language that engineers communicate with. So regardless of where you are in the world, at least you understand the terminologies. In terms of processes, yes, at a Collins level, there has been a lot of standardization. But in terms of bringing all the processes to the same level in all the RTX companies will still take some amount of time.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where I think if you see today across several industries, the digital transformation is sweeping, right? So, and normally, people from outside aerospace industry, they always think that aerospace is at the bleeding edge of technology. Once you're inside, that may not be the case. But coming back in digital transformation, how do you see that happening in terms of increasing your operational efficiency? And what, according to you, or would you say the top 3 digital technologies that are impacting aerospace and defense industry, Savya?
Yeah, so Dwarka, I mean, you're from the industry as well, so when it comes to some of these new technologies, while aerospace does a pretty good job of embracing it, we are not probably the first ones to do it. Absolutely. And that's also got to do with the fact that there are a lot of safety requirements and constraints and certification that we've got to go with. So we take on more mature technologies, especially when it comes to bringing it into the cockpit. But that said, I would say the pandemic pushed forward quite a few technologies at a far greater rate than aerospace industry would have normally adopted them. So I would say some of the main, let me talk about the applications first, and then we'll talk about specifically to the technologies. So I would say if you look at what the customer wants today, and I won't say this is something new, the aerospace customer has always wanted things, faster to market. They always wanted it, cheaper, and they've always wanted it to be better than what it was previously. So faster, cheaper, better, which makes it for tier 1 OEMs like us fairly challenging because some of these are contradicting sort of requirements. So we as a company have also sort of embarked on that in terms of how we can bring to bear some of these technologies in a much more rapid fashion. Since I spoke about pandemic, touchless was something that came up overnight, which airlines and airports started demanding. And today we have a slew of products and solutions, Dwarka, that have bringing touchless technologies, using sensors and biometrics, technologies, either on board or aircraft or even in our airport solutions. The other application I would say is again a little bit more futuristic, but there's been a lot more development. Is I would say reducing the overall pilot and crew workload. This has been an ask of the industry from a long time. We all know of accidents that have happened because of overworked pilots and so on. So bringing, I would say, a little bit more autonomy into the cockpit and decision making. And I would say add to that even enabling voice commands into the cockpit, into that whole sort of thing. So that has driven advent of new technologies, like I said, voice enablement, looking at AI ML for potential single pilot operations. I don't know about pilotless. That's probably several years out. But definitely looking at single pilot sort of operations is something that we are looking at bringing in, and that brings in a slew of technologies as well. Since you asked for three, and there are several examples that I can quote. The third one would be more making the cabin more smart and intelligent, right? Bringing in a lot of sensor technology, bringing in Wi-Fi and wake technologies on board, where systems are talking to each other. As you are very well aware, the systems on the airplanes don't talk to each other as much as as some of the other systems that you may imagine. But I think that's all going to change. There is significant sort of work going on making the cabin really smart, real-time decision making, having a lot of data available for both decision making at the crew level as well as autonomous decision making as well. And these are, like I said, driving technologies like AI, ML, prognostic health monitoring. And I can't say all this without saying cyber, because cybersecurity is going to be such a crucial thing going forward, because it just bringing these technologies unfortunately brings in a level of vulnerability into the whole mix, which obviously we all need to be cognizant about.
Absolutely. I think, as you rightly said, in aerospace industry, it's also a mindset, right? So our product development cycle is long. So, we want to take things in the right way, because people always ask me and saying, Dwarka, why is this business class seat? It's so expensive. I can buy a BMW car with 4 seats and everything in, which is still cheaper than one business class seat. It's just that the mindset of it needs to be really safe, secure, certified, and all that. As you said, it's extremely important. Coming back, as you said, one the key things for us in the industry is that we want to reduce product cost, product development cost, and the overall time to market. That's a big push which is coming, and on the other side we want to also increase the operational efficiency, right? So this is always a challenging one to do all these things at the same time, but that's where I think the digital transformation gives a ray of hope. And as you rightly said, COVID, as many organizations, say that, what CIOs couldn't do, COVID has done, in terms of digital transformation, or at least pushing things. And coming back, this also puts a lot of emphasis on simulation and modeling, and so that things can be done virtually.
Absolutely.
And then one of the real cornerstones, or at least of today, the hot topics, is digital twins, right? So and we are looking at creating digital twins for the products, for the industrial system, and even for the services as well, as a big push going on. And how do you see that implementing in aerospace with your experience as well? And then I'm sure AI, ML, the different technologies need to be combined with this digital twins as well. So how is the journey like, on that area?
Yes, so Dwarka, I think there is definitely a lot of work happening on that front. Clearly, with the complexity of systems that you have in A&D, having digital twin just makes a whole lot of sense. If you are able to predict the performance of systems well before they are even in the market by using models and virtual aids, that is the way to go. So there is a lot of work going on that front. But there are also some challenges, right? There are technology barriers. There is also, our ability to build such complex systems that can, handle all scenarios. I mean, just give you an example of, a plane in cruise. The kind of, scenarios that plane faces is very, very challenging to have everything modeled via a digital twin. I mean, I'm giving you an extreme example, but as the systems get more and more complex, accurately modeling that is challenging as well, especially corner cases which we don't routinely have, or you may not have a whole lot of data associated with those corner cases. So those become that much more challenging. But clearly for aerospace industry, this is a must win. I mean, must do sort of a thing because of the potential of taking this forward to the market quickly, coming up with any major challenges. As you know, any issues that you find in complex systems later in a life cycle become so much more harder and more expensive to fix. So being able to sort of predict those and also doing real time analysis is clearly an advantage. So this is being done at multiple levels, as you can see, like you said, products, services, all these areas. But if you look at it from aerospace product itself, it's happening at a subsystem level, a system level, a system of system levels that these things are being explored at. The biggest challenge I would say is data, right? I mean, because there are so many players in this overall ecosystem. One is acquisition of data. The other one is sharing of data, because there are so many people who are companies or organizations that are involved without, and sometimes data is your IP. So how do you share that seamlessly to make these work effectively? I would say that's a challenge. So bottom line to your question, very exciting field, lot of work being done, but there are technological, I would say, challenges. There are data acquisition, data validation related challenges. There are, in terms of understanding of the domain and, accuracy of modeling sort of challenges. And lastly, IP related challenges. And I'll probably keep repeating this, cybersecurity. So that continues to be, these challenges that we need to continue to focus on.
Absolutely. I think data, it's extremely, as they say, that's the new oil. But, today in aerospace also, we get a lot of data as well sometimes. But then the question is, how do we make sense of a lot of the data which we collect from aircraft, for example? That's also equally important, right? So if you make when you have so much data, then it won't be enough, just to blindly look at the system and then follow what the system tells us. You need to have what you would call, I would call it as an engineering clarified common sense to make, say what it is telling, does it make sense? So you need that domain expertise. Otherwise, you may blindly lose that, and that's the combination I think we are all working on to try and see how we can achieve. And you have repeated a few times now, it's an extremely important one is cybersecurity, because there are some positive things during the pandemic, but cybersecurity has actually has become one of the key topics because of the cyber attacks. We've been seeing that across the world, from different offices. This is happening as well, and bringing some of the factories to stop. That's the other one. And as you said, we need to move from where you have the digital connectivity to being digital native, and that will take some time, to really, connect all these things, to do that as well. But again, coming from, your background with systems, software, that side of it, where you spent some time, And one of the methodologies which came out of that is the agile methodology, which is came out of software development and being done. So the question there, I have is that how do we think that these agile, can help the aerospace industry, especially on the hardware side? Sometimes, aerospace industry, we all think we are special, right? So the hardware guys will say, no, 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 that's for software. It's nothing to do with me. And how do you think that that is actually, taking shape? Especially not only if you're working within your own teams, but also if you need to engage with the supply chain as well. And if you have a project which cuts across your team and the supply chain, do you see that there is a good take up for that, and what needs to be done?
No, absolutely. Dwarka, I think, if you look at it, aerospace industry, we have now started embracing agile wholeheartedly. I think there was definitely some reluctance several years ago, but I think we've moved past that. If I'm not very mistaken, and you may be more be able to tell us, I think A350 used a lot of agile. Absolutely. Sort of methodologies to in the development of that aircraft, which is a great piece of technology. So in my mind, again, the fundamentals of what the aerospace customer wants is, again, like I said, quick to market, and being able to bring in efficiency into the system, and being able to sort of react quickly to the customer's needs, environmental needs, and needs of multiple stakeholders. And agile lends itself, wonderfully to that kind of scenario, be it, hardware or software. I know software has been done for several more years before that, but I think that's something which people have embraced even on the entire system, level now, where we are seeing agile is not just becoming a methodology, but becoming a mindset in terms of how an entire organization works towards a common goal, so it aligns everybody from the CEO of the company to a hardware software engineer. Everybody knows what they're sort of marching towards, this whole incremental way of doing things helps us to be more agile. I'm sorry to use the word agile while describing agile, but more flexible and dynamic in terms of bringing in more changes into the system, because as you said, a typical A&D system requires 5 years, 10 years to bring to market, and things in our environment don't stay static; they're also very dynamic.
Absolutely.
So the methodology allows us to to kind of do continuous build and testing, and bringing on DevSecOps and all those technologies to bear, where we are able to take markets quickly to our customers, understand what the impression is, understand what the challenges and impact may be, and then continue to build on it. So I think from an adoption perspective, I can tell you I have seen programs with only 3-4 people doing agile work to a couple of hundred people working on flight management system software, who are spending an entire day or 2 days doing PI planning, and then get and then rolling like a machine to sort of breaking up into smaller scrums, and doing a really good job of maintaining the overall scope and schedule. So I would say it's successfully adopted. It's becoming more a way of life and a mindset than it was before, Dwarka.
Yeah, I think from my experience as well, it started very well with the software development, embedded systems, all that they lapped onto the agile because it's much easier, and many of them were some other core activities as well. So when you do with a team internally, that it became easier. Then I think when you start doing some work internally, some work with the suppliers, then I think the methodology lends itself, but the contractual issues came up as a challenge. What do you do? Do you go back to time and material with agile, or what sort of things? There was a big debate, and then we overcome that as well to do. But I subscribe to what you said in the sense that it's just not a method where you have rituals and other things. It's a mindset. Once you adapt to that,
Absolutely.
then you can always find ways of implementing agile in the way you do things, to do that. So I think people found that comfortable to do it on a project. Then they said, if it's a recurring activity, how do I do it? But then the moment you switch over, saying, forget these rituals, look at it as a methodology. How would you implement? Then people go to a different plane, and then that makes it very good for the people
No,
to go down
absolutely,
to
Dwarka.
implement it,
Yep.
to do that. Hey, you touched upon this autonomy, and maybe I'll dive a little bit into that. As technology moves beyond automation, we have the autonomy and autonomous systems. They bring in a lot of efficiency as well. Is the existing workforce ready for this change? That's one of the thought. And then, if so, if not, what sort of upskilling we need to do? Because lots we are talking about AI, ML, and the ability to do autonomously things. So just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
No, no, that's a great question, Dwarka. So I would say the demand far surpasses the supply we have. So there is a huge skill gap today because almost everybody is embarking on this journey now. It's not just aerospace and defense. You look at auto sector. You look at the financial sector. Look at the medical field growing so quickly. You look at heavy engineering and railroads. Everybody's embarking on the same journey as we are, and everybody wants the same skill sets that we all are looking for as well. So to answer your question, there is a huge skill supply gap, and that's also it's because of the demand and sort of supply scenario. I would say for people to be working on what we need going forward, one is from an academics perspective, the basics have to be very strong. So, things that typically sort of, engineers glossed over, which is the math and the physics, and just got into, I don't know how you do become a good, somebody who can do fluid dynamics and structures and so on without a fundamental, background in mathematics and
Exactly.
and sort of physics was hard then, is going to become harder now. So having your basics in mathematics and physics becomes very important, because if you're going to be modeling things, or you're going to be predicting things, then it's not just about learning a tool. You have to understand how these things behave, and for that, I think for you to be able to bring in accurate, right algorithms, I think that is going to be very, very important. The second aspect that I would say is understanding the domain. Somebody who's just out of school and say, hey, I am an AI/ML expert. I'm going to, build a digital twin for you for an aircraft. I mean, you can't do, 1/10 of a subsystem without having a strong domain expertise. In fact, a lot of I interact quite a bit with, fresh aerospace and defense sort of graduate, and they all ask me, how long does it take for me to become a subject matter expert? And I tell them, subject matter expert in what? And they say in aerospace and defense. I said, if you're lucky, it will take you 15 years in one subsystem or one element, let alone becoming an aerospace expert. So I think we need people who have strong domain expertise, as well as the fundamental strength in the basics. Those are the two elements that I would say, as you move on to some of, when you say autonomy, or we talked about AI/ML and more in terms of digital twins and so on. Those are going to be skill sets. Yes, you will need to pick up new tools and technologies, but in addition to that, these are going to be very, very important. Now, I know NASSCOM is doing a great job in terms of engaging with industry and academia to help bridge some of these skill sets. And I'm part of the ER&D Council, and I know some amazing work being done by NASSCOM in making that happen. But as an industry, I think we also have a responsibility to reach out to universities and colleges, making sure the curriculum is up to speed, and our employees or or future employees are more employment ready, especially I would say, going to tier 2, tier 3 sort of colleges becomes that much more important. And I'm talking specifically in India. So yeah, those are going to be some of the things, Dwarka, and being strong in statistics and mathematics and fundamentals that are going to be key.
Yeah, I think, as you rightly said, fundamentals and STEM is extremely important. That's without that, you will not be able to predict or look at the data and make sense out of it. Otherwise, you may get into a wrong conclusion because data can be represented in different forms. You need the fundamental knowledge to do that. As you rightly said, I think a lot needs to be done at the university level, and I think the recent ER&D conference as well. There's a lot we talked about on that particular subject as well. I work closely with IIC and IIM as well, so to try and see how we can bring this, across one on the management side as well as on the, on the STEM side as well. A lot needs to be done. There's a lot has been done already, but as you rightly said, fundamentals need to be there, for us to really understand. Then, looking at the time as well. So I have one last question to you, in the sense that now we have the pandemic. We are recovering from the pandemic. You are in engineering, and India is doing a lot on engineering services as well. How do you see that post-pandemic, the engineering footprint in India, both in terms of captives as well as with the supply chain? How do you see that, growing? Do you see that there will be a lot of opportunities for India, both in the captive centers as well as with the suppliers?
Absolutely, Dwarka. The reason I say is yes, there is the pandemic, and I also say there is a little bit of geopolitics and geopolitical tensions across the world that are driving more work towards India. As we are recovering from the pandemic, especially I will talk about the aerospace industry. We've had a pretty rough couple of years. And I don't think we will be back to the same numbers in terms of passenger miles till maybe 23, 24 timeframe. So there is a lot of focus on cost, and there's also speed to market, which is driving a lot of this move as well. And with the talent base that we have in India, we continue to have a very strong sort of business case for getting more work done. Additionally, we will see a lot of manufacturing happening in India, which is great because we can't sustain ourselves just doing services. We will see growth in services, we will see growth in R&D, and we will see growth in manufacturing. And that I would say is going to be very key for us as we continue to grow the overall offerings from India and the overall ecosystem, both to engineering as well as other domains that we sort of support. But in terms of growth, I would say I see growth across the board, not just captives. Yes, captives will continue to see their presence growing. When it started off in 90s, I think it was maybe Honeywell and GE, and now there is hardly anybody who's not here. I mean, today I think we have getting close to what 1,200, 1,300 GCCs in India. That is great, and quite a few engineering ER&D sort of firms looking to go. I think 300, 400 more sort of lined up over the next few years to come into India. So that's great from that perspective. But I would say, in addition to GCC, services organizations will continue to grow. Manufacturing supply chain will continue to grow. We'll be more and more looking at doing global supply. I mean, Atmanirbhar by itself is growing capability here. But additionally, supporting global supply chain, I think, is going to be sort of important in terms of. So you will see a lot in terms of chips as well that will happen out here. In addition to mainly mechanical components that we've been doing in this. So yeah, overall, I would say very positive outlook, I would say, for our industry from an India perspective going forward.
I think that's true. And I could say that engineering services, especially, has grown significantly in India for in the last 10 years or so. 15 years ago, there wasn't much. So, but and in Airbus, we saw that, for us. Outside of Europe, India was where we got the maximum in terms of engineers supporting us. So that I could see that in many organizations as well, like that. One of the advantages you guys have is in Collins is that the engineers can touch what they do, which not many organizations have, right? So you have manufacturing, you can see, and that is very important to really adjust, what you have in your mind, that sort of thing. And lastly, what is very important is the cybersecurity and the export control, which you talked about, are key for the engineering services to grow, right? So from India, that's one of the things we've been talking about as well. So I think that's excellent. So I must say that thank you very much, Savio, for taking the time really to talk to us as well. And I know it's been a busy period as well. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, man.
No, thank you, Dwarka, again. Thanks to NASSCOM and the entire team for giving us this opportunity to interact with you. But really looking forward to having more and more collaborations. Facilitated by NASSCOM, as well as working closely with our industry partners in the future, as we have a lot of big challenges that we have to together overcome. So really looking forward to it.
Good luck. Thanks. Good luck with your role in Collins as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.